Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Living in the Limelight, an Anton Scholl and Friends podcast where we discuss music from the artist and fan perspective. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show.
I have seen Randy play, but I've only seen him play for what he needed to perform in Quiet Riot. Uh, Not until I started to give lessons at his family's music school, Musonia, that I actually hear the depth, musical depth of Randy. Because now, in between lessons, he would pick up the acoustic guitar and play classical music.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I didn't know you play like that. And he says, yeah, we don't do this in Quiet Riot, so you never get to hear me play like this. And he says, yeah, but I started out playing classical. And obviously he could read because he was teaching and writing music, and he knew about harmony and theory and composition and all of the above. And that's when I really started watching Randy for who he was, an incredibly well-rounded musician, beyond well-rounded. I mean, he's a legend, but he had all those qualities and education. His mom and dad were music professors, so he was brought up in academia, learning all the steps, not just jumping. Hey, you want to learn some scales, and then the next day, hey, how about the pentatonic one? No, it was like the proper. Okay, you're going to learn how to read, and you're going to learn the scales, and then you're going to learn the modes. Just go through the steps like in any education you get in any school.
Right. Now you guys became obviously very fast and close friends
Yeah,
from that.
yeah, especially when we first started playing with Ozzy, because one of the things that separated Randy and me, even though Randy had been with Ozzy for a while, for about a year and a half before I joined the band, uh, actually for a little bit over a year, uh, was that Tommy and Ozzy already were veterans of the whole music industry.
Mhm.
Ozzy with Black Sabbath, 15, 16 years with the band. And then Tommy Aldrich about the same with Black Oak, Arkansas, and Pat Travers. So they were way ahead of us as far as career wise. Randy and I, we were just getting started. So everything was brand new to us. Everything was like, oh, we arrive in Omaha. Wow, never been here before. Oh, let's go and check it out. Let's go to the mall. It's like, it was
Yeah.
exciting. The other guys already were settled in, and they're like, yeah, we've been here. you know,
Right.
and so there was a different vibe. So we got to hang out a lot. And then when he passed away, it just took the joy of making music for me completely.
Yeah.
And for everybody too. But since I, you know, okay, so let's say Ozzy grateful to Randy for reinvigorating his career by writing and being the performer that Randy is. And I say that because he's still alive in a lot of people's consciousness,
Sure.
including mine. So I always refer to him as is because he still has an impact. So he is,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So I and it's for his own purposes, his own experience with Randy. He's grateful for that. And then mine was that he is the one responsible for me getting the spot as the new bass player in the band.
Yeah.
He recommended me and he put his trust, with Sharon and Ozzy on the line for me. And and then if you read my book, I have a book called Off the Rails, which answers the number one question, which is all about what was it like to play with Randy Rhoads. I talk
Mhm.
about him saving our lives during the crash, keeping the plane from completely crashing into the bus. It clipped the bus, but it did
Yeah.
not crash into the bus. So, there's so many layers of gratefulness that I have for Randy that it goes beyond the bond that we had, our friendship and bandmate. Also, coming from Quiet Riot together. That was, one thing about when we were in Quiet Riot, and of course, with Ozzy, you know, with Quiet Riot was a little bit even more focused because Randy would teach about 8 hours a day. Then he would come over to rehearsal for 2 hours, then do it again the next day. So he was constantly playing. You know, he was teaching or rehearsing with us. And then
Mhm.
sometimes we had new songs that we were working on. We would work on that. Uh, and that was the focus. I never really sat down and talked to Randy about religion, politics, who's going out with who. It didn't matter. It was all about the music. And
Yeah.
that parlayed into when we started playing together in Ozzy. It would basically picked it up from there. It was all about the music
Right.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah. And really that's what makes it so sad because, a lot of us, remember that and what a shock it was when that happened. And, it was a huge loss, and then all this stuff started to come out about, the lost tapes, hidden tapes of him doing classical. And it was like, this guy was amazing, and yeah, all he
Hmm.
focused on was
Yeah.
music. And it was such a tragedy, that
Hmm.
it's just one of those things that people just will never forget. I can certainly,
Hmm.
imagine. I can only imagine what you went through at that particular time.
I
Um,
wrote about it in my book because it got to be really difficult and painful to talk about it. And it
yeah,
would just put me in a state that it would take me like a whole day to get over it. I would have to like go to sleep, wake up in the next day and kind of like start fresh again, you know.
yeah. Well, let me ask you about the Ozzy time because again, I know that it's probably not that big of an issue to you, but a lot of bass players and a lot of musicians when
Mm,
Diary of a Madman came out, and you were on the album cover, and then you were in the band when the album came out, but yet then it was found out later that
mm,
you didn't play the bass on that.
mm.
So how did that particular thing come about, and why wasn't it transparent at the time? Do you know why
Yeah,
any of that happened?
yeah. Our image is not on the cover; it's on the inner sleeve of the record. Uh, when that came about is when I joined the band, Blizzard and Diary already were recorded, you know.
Hmm.
And so one day, actually, we were in England getting ready for the Diary of a Madman tour, and that's when we were shown the album artwork. And I look at it, and it's Ozzy doing his thing. And then I pull out the record, and there's our picture in Druid language saying something. I have no idea what it says. I'm a little rusty on Druid language.
As we all are, yeah.
and I turned to Tommy and I go, wow, I'm going to have to spend the rest of my life explaining about this that I didn't play on the record. So the best I could do is when I wrote my book, it's all in there. It's not like I'm trying to hide anything,
Right.
you know. And this is a decision that was beyond my control.
Hmm. Yeah.
It wasn't my idea.
Yeah. So, and just wanting to, yeah, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not any kind of issue that had happened. It was nothing major. It was just the fact that you weren't even there yet, you know,
You know what?
very
Whether it's a
simple.
conspiracy theory or not, that's up to the individual. But the fact is that it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
That's all. And I'll go beyond that. There's versions of those records where the original musicians have been replaced by other musicians, not me.
Mm, yeah. Right.
So what's even worse? To actually replace the original or just a photo that I had no control of appearing in the inner sleeve of the album.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would think that either way, you know what? Does it really matter at that point? I mean, you toured, you did the bass, you played the bass, you know, uh, hey,
What
fact that you
matters
weren't
to
in
me
there.
is that if I have an opportunity to explain about
Yeah.
it and to actually say I did not play on this record in
Yeah.
my book, I of course I had to do that.
Right. Of course. All right. Well, let me get to a couple of these questions from some of your fans out there because you already answered a couple of them, so I won't go through them. But one question is how do you prepare for a show, and how often do you practice?
Hmm. See, to me, there's a difference between playing the instrument, trying to learn something new, looking at the same 12 notes from a different point of view, uh, and practicing. Because practicing, for example, you get some cheap music and hear some exercises.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, what does this have to do with me as a creative being? Yeah, it's good to know to learn the scales and all of that. It's like taking a driver's test. They'll give you the fundamentals of the road, how
Mhm.
the rules of the road. Okay, well, these are the rules of music. And then it's like, now that you know the rules, do whatever you want. Because at least you know when you're breaking the rules and when you're following the rules. And in certain situations, you got to follow the rules because the song is built on those fundamental diatonic rules, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Then you get into a different musical format that is like more freedom in it. And but you know the rules, but you know how to break them. And
Yeah.
that's what I really enjoy doing. Looking at, especially now that I don't have to make records with a producer. Nothing against producers, but a lot of times, the me as a listener growing up, I've been a fan of music longer than I've been a professional musician. And it was after I became a professional musician that I understood the protocol of a recording, which is basically the record company agrees that you're going to record these songs, and then they're going to bring in a producer that they feel is going to be the best to crystallize your own vision through this person's eyes. And then that producer is going to get an engineer who's going to say, okay, oh, I think this guy is going to get the best sound out of these musicians. So by the end of it, I got to tell you, I've never been involved in a mix. I've never been fully involved, meaning that I'm going to be there during the whole mixing, even though I'm signed to the record deal.
Yeah.
It's like they say, okay, you guys go and we'll send you the mix. Because the final say traditionally is the record company. It's a record deal.
Right.
They own the masters in a traditional recording, right?
Yeah.
So now, fast forward, 40 something years, I am not in a situation like that. So when I record myself in projects that people ask me to play on, I am my own producer, and I go, okay, I'm going to listen to the song. I'm going to listen to every single instrument where they're going with this. I'm going to listen to the vocals, who is going to lay out the melody of the song. That's the instrument that I'm really paying the most attention to, because I can always gravitate towards the guitar and the drums. I got to keep in beat, with the
Yeah.
drums. Listen to the drum parts, okay? But it's the vocals that is going to give you the sense of movement in your bass line, because there's a movement to the melody,
Hmm.
whether it's a beat related movement, could be one note, but there's this thing going on, or a very melodic, complex line. And you just got to find your place there that you're going to be supporting the singer. Because I
Yeah.
find a lot of times when I get these ghost tracks that they, yeah, because I ask for them because I want to see the vision of the person that is hiring me to play on these tracks. And I do them because I love the challenge. It's something
Sure.
different, outside of, let's say, Quiet Riot. This is not
Hmm.
Quiet Riot type of music. This is something else. And I can be challenged to get that style of music out of me. And I like that, creatively challenged to do that. And so I do it, and I get so much satisfaction. And these are recordings that do not really get heard and are not like big sellers. But for
Yeah.
me, I put a lot of my conscious effort into it.
Sure. Sure. Now, what about the style? You came up with the style playing on stage, over the neck, uh, flipping the bass around and playing that way. how did that come about? Because a lot of people have different styles of what they do with their guitars or with their basses, but yours was very original, something I've never seen before. And then all of a sudden, obviously everybody's trying to do it. How did that come about? Was it on stage that it happened or before?
Well, it's an attitude, but first it started out as trying to keep myself from falling asleep during set number 5 or 6, when I we used to do 6 sets a night, starting at eleven
Yeah.
o'clock or midnight, depending in the area that has a certain curfew. Uh, I mean, we've done 6 sets starting at midnight, ending at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you see the sun coming out of this huge bay window that is next to your amplifier. Playing in a club. I'm talking about the club days.
Yeah.
So I started doing stuff like that just to keep myself awake. Attention, challenge
Wow.
myself.
Okay.
Okay, okay, we're playing rock and roll hoochie coo for the third time tonight, and like I love the song, but it's like, okay, I'm
Right.
falling asleep, so let me play rock and roll hoochie coo upside down. Okay, good,
Right.
keeps me awake.
Nice. That's good. Now, I'm going to ask a question here, and I don't know if I'm being set up or not from this question because
Ah,
I've never heard of this particular project, but you have to tell me. One of the fans is asking, whatever happened to the Sun Kings project?
oh, Sun King, yeah, that's a band that I put together in the '90s, and we actually got signed to Giant Records, and we had the same management as Whitesnake. I was when that 1990 was our Slip of the Tongue tour, and at the very beginning of the tour, Dave Coverdale announced to the band that he was going to take a long break, and so he gave us that whole tour to prepare ourselves what we were going to do next. So uh, I started out checking local musicians in Los Angeles, and one of the ones that I found was John Lowry, known as John Five today, but this is the original name, John Lowry.
Okay.
And he was like 19 years old when we started playing together. And the other one, it's Richard from Vintage Trouble, and the drummer, and then a couple of the other guys. So we just got a record deal. We spent like, a year working, writing songs, and we went through the whole process of showcasing for labels, and we got signed. And then grunge happened. And Lowry, Johnny, he was the first one to like really embrace it and go, like first, yeah, Smells Like Teen Spirit came on MTV, and he immediately gravitated towards it. And you know, I should have, in hindsight, I should have listened to the new music and realized that a lot of it was rooted in a style that I already have been playing with Ozzy. It's a very Black Sabbath influence music. Especially Soundgarden. And
Mhm.
I could have gone in that direction, but I had my head up the '80s butt way too deep to actually recognize it. So eventually, we just disbanded. And Johnny went on to do wonderful things, and now
Sure.
he's in Motley Crue.
Motley Crue. Correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Um, Another question. Do you still own the black and white Saber played in Blizzard or any of the Washburn signature models played in Quiet Riot?
Actually, in with Ozzy, it was a Saber Music Man, black, that got stolen
Either.
in the studio. I was going to
Okay.
use it for the remaining tracks of the Metal Health album, and it got stolen. Um let's see, the stripe, black and white stripe one. No, years ago, this is what happened. I had it stored, and I took it out. This is like in late 1990s. I took it out of storage, and I took it out of the case, and I went to play it, and it had duct tape behind, because I used to put duct tape because I used to wear studded belts. We all did back then, and I used to like indent the
Yeah.
back of the
Yeah.
bass. So I figure, we would put duct tape to keep that from happening really deep, to protect it a
Yeah.
bit. And so I started removing the duct tape, and the wood started coming up. Then I realized this is particle wood. The base is
Oh,
laid out. So I put the tape back on, and soon after that, there was like a frenzy from Japan. People in LA, there would be like agents that would represent somebody in Japan, and they were buying all these vintage instruments from bands from the 80s that were not using them anymore, right? So I get
mhm.
contacted by this guy, and I say, "Yeah, I got that bass right here. You can pick it up. It's going to be this much." And they bought it, and it's somewhere
Wow.
in Japan. It might be,
Mm.
you know, just pieces of particles
Right.
laying
Right. Disintegrated by now.
disintegrated in a box. Who knows?
Right. Well, now, is there a base that you had lost, gotten rid of, whatever, that you wish you had to this day?
Yeah, and it was not a bass that I used a whole lot, but just because of it was in 1952. Fender. Well, it wasn't even a precision. I think it was a Telecaster. It was like the first bass built, the first model of the bass, asbestos pickguard, and it was in pristine condition. I bought it from Steve's Guitar in Minneapolis in 1984 for $1,500. 15. It had a lipstick pickup, asbestos pickguard.
Yeah.
It was like
Hmm.
perfect, right? Uh, and so I bought it, but you know what? I couldn't use it for recording. I couldn't play with it because every time I would do a session, they would expect me to walk in with a souped up preamped, either a Music Man or something that had a lot of output preamp
Yeah.
wise. And so I didn't play it. I just sat at home, and the original seller contacted me and says, "Hey, if you ever want to sell it back, I'll give you exactly what you pay for it." And I said, "Yeah, it's just sitting here. Here, let me just ship it to you." So I sold it back to him. But now, in hindsight, it's of 1952.
Well, they do have you probably heard this thing that Paul McCartney just got his one of his original Hofners back. There is
Yeah,
now a thing out there like Bass Finder, where you put
yeah.
in the numbers of what your bass was and people find it. So,
I have no idea what.
if anybody out there has Rudy's bass, let's talk about it. See if we can get it back
That's
to
okay. No, the one I would really love to get back is my original Saber, the
him.
black, two pickups, Music Man. It's I bought it in 1981, so it's either 81 or 80 or 79.
Yeah, that one was stolen.
That was stolen.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
I
Well,
would
we're
love to get it
gonna.
back. I'd love to get it back. No
Yeah.
questions asked.
All right. There you go. No questions asked. Contact me if you need. Contact Rudy. Let's get his bass back.
That's right.
Uh, just another question in regards to you guys touring right now. When you're touring right now, do you choose opening acts, like local opening acts to work with, or no? How do you do
No,
any
that's
opening acts?
yeah, but that's up to the promoter. Well, imagine this: an opening act in Idaho, in Pocatello. I'm not from Pocatello. I have no idea
Yeah.
who will be the right act to pick. The promoter does because he knows about the following of the band.
Yeah.
That's all they look for. How many butts in the seats can this act bring
Yeah.
to the bill?
Sure.
We have nothing to do with that.
No control
We,
over that.
yeah, people even ask us, how come you don't play in our city or our country? And my answer is because a promoter from your city or country has not contacted us, booked us to play. I mean, we just
Yeah.
can't show up and play.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, sometimes like when they do it out here. Now I'm in Arizona. When they do it out here, they do kind of vet the bands. They have you send in promo packs. They have you, and then they listen to it. And like one of the bands usually have to approve that opening act. Obviously, yes, what you're talking about, selling tickets or make sure how many butts they
Yeah,
can get in the seats. Yeah. All right. So you have nothing to do with that at all
no, it's
whatsoever.
it's it's the promoter. Yeah,
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, we have a few minutes left, and I want to switch gears entirely because there's obviously a lot more to you than
Ah,
just being the bass player that you are. And a couple of things I wanted to touch on, which is kind of near and dear to me, also is rescue dogs.
uh,
So I
yeah.
know that you do quite a bit of that. Where, I mean, well, one, where do you find the time? But I mean, what really got you started on, trying to find these animals homes and just kind of promoting it?
Oh, it's my love and appreciation, the unconditional love that I get from my own
Yeah.
little girl who's there she is right there. See, she's
Where? Is she?
she's asleep.
Oh, there she is. Yeah.
There's asleep right there. She- I mean, it's priceless. Really
Yeah.
is. All the love that they give you.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's her name?
Baby Willow.
Oh, okay. And
Baby is her first name. Yeah.
how long have you had her?
She's 7 right now. So
Oh,
we've
okay.
had her as a
Yeah.
baby Willow.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, that's always a good thing. We always think about, I just wanted to kind of open up more about what some of the things that you do, because you're really helping a lot of now you're helping animals, but you also help a lot of people. Like when you've done the band camps, you've done the cruises, uh, you know, that's just so much because you're so accessible. And we as musicians, we as bass players, we as just fans in general appreciate how accessible you are, and that you're willing to talk with people and that you're willing to go through the process with people. So how did for example, the the band camp, uh you had done one before where you were kind of teaching at one point with that?
Oh, Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp?
Yeah, the fantasy camp, right, correct.
Yeah, yeah. I first started doing it like 15 years ago. And oh, that's something that I really enjoy a lot because it's my um, it's my way of being able to give back. I mean,
Yeah,
one thing is wanting to give back, and then another thing is finding the vehicle to give back. And so to me, Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp is the perfect vehicle to be able to give back to everybody who's been supporting not only myself or any of the bands that I play in, but the whole genre itself.
yeah,
So, and it's really good to pass along information. And I've made some lifelong friends. I've met them at the camp, and these are people that are incredible human beings, and music just gets us. It's our bond, you
yeah.
know.
And that's great that you do that. And it's very much appreciated. And now you also did the Monsters of Rock cruise. How different is that, being on a floating city and playing?
For me, what makes a great show is the production. How's the PA, how's the monitor, how's the people, uh, the lights, the technicians behind, the front of the house guy, the monitor guy, the lighting guy, the quality of the backline, the drums, everything. To me, I mean, I don't care if I'm playing in a volcano, as long as the production it's
Yeah,
the right one. That would allow us to be ourselves without having to worry about what it's going to sound like out there or the quality of, let's say, my bass sound. You know, and so as long as we get some, for me, really good quality SVTs that have been with upkeeping, make sure that they're all the tubes are fresh and stuff like that.
yeah,
That's all I ask for. It doesn't it really doesn't make much difference to me as long as the gear allows to make to perform the best show possible.
yeah. Okay. And what is your go-to rig right now versus what it was when you first started?
Hmm. Oh my God. Things were very different back then. But now the PA systems are so high tech, so high quality that that's what carries the volume into the arena. Back in the day, we didn't really have. I'm talking about 40 years ago, 40
Yeah.
something years ago. we were still struggling with the PA system. And, back in the day, if, I had three SVTs rigs behind me, those were always on. They were on. But then again, the stage was so deep. We had that castle, and the amps were behind the castles. Randy had five Marshall stacks, three behind him, one on the side, and one in the pit.
Yeah.
And so it was a whole different dynamics. I played in bands that I had to use in-ears. I would just use one and listen to the ambient sound of the music on stage just to balance it out. Uh, but I prefer not having to use the in-ears
Yeah.
just because
I've heard a lot
I'm
about that.
yeah, I'm old school, but it doesn't mean that if I have
Right.
to someday, I definitely will. I have some really good ultimate ear, which I would find to be the best
Right.
in-ear monitors, and so again, when you go on Monsters of Rock cruise, you're gonna get the top of the line
Yeah.
production, and it was guaranteed perfect.
Right. Great. All right. Quick last questions. Your
Okay.
top three bass players.
Oh my God, this is, and I'm just gonna give you in chronological order, not because they're my top, but they were like the first one that made an impression on me. Obviously Paul McCartney, then James Jamerson, and the next one will have to be Tim Bogart.
Oh, okay. Wow. All
Yeah,
right. Now, what about now? You had also posted something in regards to, we just lost another great musician
hmm
in my eyes from Firehouse.
yeah,
CJ
CJ.
that
Yeah,
just passed away. What was your connection? Because I saw you posted something on there about him, uh, and
yeah.
it's very sad. But what was your connection?
Firehouse was one of those bands that every other band wanted them on the bill because they were cool to hang with. They brought in a great crowd of their own to the show, and they were great guys, good people. We did a lot of shows, Quiet Riot and Firehouse back in the 2000s, and they were great all around. I mean, it was like great. We aspire. I aspire to be in bands like that. That, for example, nowadays, Quiet Riot, uh, there's no drama. We show up, no matter what the conditions are. Sometimes we're not as high on the bill as we hope for, but that's okay. We're here, and we're gonna do the best show
Sure.
that we. This is what we're here for. And so we keep it simple. We don't have a crew. It's just the four of us. I have a bag, Tech 21 bag that I can fit my wireless system, which happens to be an old school Shure UXL 4 Pro, and I just carry one pedal with me, which is the Doug Pinnick Tech 21 pedal. Everything I need and then some is in that pedal.
Wow.
It's the only pedal I've ever found
Oh,
that
okay.
I don't need anything else. And if I could just play that pedal for the rest of my life or my career, that's perfect.
Wow. Great. All right. Last question. I promise. Here we go.
Okay.
Somebody, you played with so many people throughout your career. Is there
Mhm.
somebody that you have not played with that you would
Ah,
love to have played or played with or want to
yeah,
play with?
Jeff Beck. I was thinking about that today. I was listening to Jeff Beck live. I usually listen to him when I work out of the gym because he's got different configurations of bands, live, through the years. It's basically the same playlist of songs that I love from Jeff Beck, instrumentals,
Sure.
but it played with different musicians in the band, and they always sound different, you know. And I thought, oh, Jeff Beck would have been so wonderful to play with. But then again, I would have been such a fanboy that I don't know. I probably couldn't. It would have been impossible for me to just to play. But that's okay. That's okay. Just his inspiration. His inspiration means so much to me.
Sure. All right. Well, Rudy, I really appreciate the time. Hang with me for a couple of minutes. We're going to just wanted to say thank you. Really appreciate your time. And for everybody, thank you for listening to the Living in the Limelight podcast. I'm your host, Anton Scholl, and join me weekly as we interview as many guests as we possibly can. And Rudy, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. And we will all talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you.
Thank you for joining our Living in the Limelight podcast with your host, Anton Scholl. Please feel free to comment, like, follow, share, and subscribe. And also add us to your playlist on your favorite streaming sites. Thanks again for joining, and we'll talk to you again next week.